is Allan Karr. I'm a husband of one wife, and I have 6 children, but they're all grown. And now we have 4 grandchildren. I'm a pastor. I work with humanitarian issues, and I'm a professor at Gateway Seminary, and I have been for 20 years. And so the passions of my life include taking care of refugees and people that are at risk and people that are underserved. And I also enjoy teaching and discipling young leaders to be leaders in church.
So for people that have clicked around enough on the page, you may have noticed that at the bottom of the About section, there's a little piece that says like a special thank you to the work that Ethne Network does, is what I believe it says. And so this would be Dr. Karr's network. And so we just want to talk a little bit more about what Ethne Church Network is, and also Ethne Global Services, which is another arm of a different organization, but another arm of your efforts.
Yes. So in 2002, we started Ethne Church Network, and it was designed to be sort of a new way, or not necessarily new, it's just new again in America, of Christians relating to one another and doing community together. And we started a church. It met in my house, and our idea was to reproduce as quickly as possible into as many congregations as God would allow. And as it's turned out through the years, the name of our church, Ethne Church Network, the Ethne means all the people, like your website's about. And as it turns out, we start churches among all different ethnicities of people, all different nations of people, including many refugee congregations.
So along those lines, can you talk a little bit about where Ethne Church Network is operating in the world?
Wow. So our church started sending out people as missionaries all over the world, and to start new churches in the Denver Front Range. We also had churches that are in Arizona. We've sent out missionaries to Turkey. We've sent out missionaries to Ireland 2 different times. We have one missionary that we support in North Africa. We have a girl from our church that's currently in in South Asia. We have churches that are networks. We have networks of churches in India. We have networks of churches in Burma, and we have a church that's in Malaysia. And so I'm 100% leaving out some of the churches, but we have churches wherever God raises up leaders that we train and we send out from our congregation. So it's been fun to see all the different places that God's used our church to go.
What are some examples of what that looks like on the ground in these places? What's the work being done?
So the heart of what I try to do is raise up indigenous leaders and train them to raise up indigenous leaders. So an example would be that one pastor that I started to train and be partners with in 2001, actually, even before we started our church, but later on got more and more involved with him, was his name's Jason Padam Kamori, and he's in India. And we have, in that network of churches, started with one church in his house, and now it's 53 different churches. A lot of them have buildings. Most of them have buildings. And but the buildings are small, and the buildings are sometimes bamboo and sometimes out in the middle of the jungle. So nothing fancy. But we just go into villages that don't have any Christian witness at all, see Christ leading them, see people being led to Christ, discipling them until there's enough Christians in a village to want to call themselves a church. And so there's currently 53 of those. 7 of those pastors we just finished a training with and have earned a diploma of Christian ministry from Gateway Seminary.
And just switching gears a little bit, so how does Ethne Global Services fit into this picture?
We suddenly realized we need to start doing some work among refugees in our city. And the more and more that we did that work, first it was just sort of a ministry of our church, like just another thing that we did. But suddenly we realized this needed to have its own 501c3 organization, because when it was just through the church, we were limited in what we were able to do. But as a nonprofit, our own NGO, our own 501c3 organization, we had opportunities to minister to people in ways that we couldn't before. It opened more doors for us to work with refugees in meaningful ways. And as it turned out, our initial hope was to start working with refugees in Denver. That was sort of our initial platform. But then we started to expand, and we went to 5 different cities of the agency started ministering to, all refugees in different places, but not all the same people. So in Phoenix, we ministered mainly to the Congolese, also some Korean people from Burma. In the Bay Area, we did a lot of work with some people that were Nepalese, that had come out of Bhutan. Bhutanese, they were Nepalese by birth and Bhutanese by refugee criteria. Then we did some work with also all the refugees working in the Bay Area with the agency there, and then particularly in Fremont with the refugees from Afghanistan. So then we started to realize refugees was a narrow criteria, and we started working with refugees in refugee camps internationally. Then we started working with IDPs and internally displaced people in other countries, widows, orphans, underserved, people who are children at risk, human trafficking. So through the years, our vision has expanded and grown some. So now we have projects in a lot of different places that all still have the same heart of what we started with, to help some people that need help. And we still do the original work a lot in Denver with the same people that we started with, but it's certainly expanded.
So how many people would you say are involved in the collective efforts of these two?
Ethne Global Services internationally has about 200 volunteers. Everybody that works for Ethne Global Services is no one is paid a salary. No one is paid, including myself and all the other board of directors. We get no salary, but so including all of us that are volunteers, there's 200 people across the globe that are doing Ethne Global Services projects. In just the Colorado area, if you take all the people that go to a church in our network over a given week, it's about 2,000 people that go to one of our churches. And then if you include all the churches that we do internationally, I almost have no way to count that. Never even tried, actually, but it's about double the 2,000.
So you mentioned that the funding-wise, no one is paid. Everyone is a volunteer. How is the network then funded?
The network is funded through, the network is a church, Ethne Church Network, and so it's funded through the donations of Christians who are members of the church mostly, but some are friends, that are, appreciate what we're doing. So that includes a lot of different churches, and so like every church that's part of the network is autonomous. They decide what to do with their own budget, and they make their decisions about that. Every church is autonomous. And I don't get into the business of asking how much each church takes in offerings or anything like that. And then the Ethne Global Services is funded through a whole network of people, including businesses, churches, church partners that are helping with some of the projects, some of them very specifically with some of the projects, and then we have a lot of just people that know what we're doing and give and donate, either specifically to a certain project or generally just to help whatever they can. So both agencies, the church and the agency, are supported by donations. Each agency has a minimal amount of administrative issues, like some insurance, like liability insurance, and some small things like website cost and office supplies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't pay rent to anyone, and we don't pay salaries to anyone, and so almost 100%, but not quite, is given to the projects that we do.
Living in America, especially for those people in America watching, we think that we need $10,000 to do something big. And so kind of off the top of your head, do you have the ability to say, here's what you can do here's what like maybe $10 does in Burma or $50 does in Cambodia?
Yeah, so if a child gets a cavity filled in this country, it can be done safely and cleanly for about $10. So it's not very expensive. And so that $10 is well spent. In Burma, for example, I have people that donate a couple $100, and what that does is take care of one person, one child that's in our children's home for an entire year.
Well,
if you take all the money that we give for their food and clothing and care, medical care, everything, books, tuition, not tuition, but some school fees. So for about $200, you can take care of a child in Burma at a children's home for a whole year. So I don't know what, if you just divide that up over 12, that's not very much. That's less than $1 a day, So that ends up being a really good use of your money to help people, to help a child. Certainly made a difference for the children that we're helping. It's changed their lives. $75 will pay for one class for one pastor. It takes 8 classes to graduate, but if you just want to break it down into the lowest number, $75 will pay for one student to take one class. And that's just administrative costs and tuition for the school, like the teacher, mostly me, never gets paid anything for that. We have students that we're sending to nursing school. You might think that sounds crazy expensive from an American standpoint. $400 a year, you can send one girl to nursing school in Burma. We have young people that are graduating from high school, want to go to Bible college. Even if they go overseas somewhere, like outside of the country that they're in, to another country that there's an accredited school, they can go to that school, all fees, everything included, for $1,000 a year. That's tuition, room, board, even some airplane flights back to see the parents. There's plenty of things that we raise money for that are big, and there's plenty of things that we raise money for that are small. Right now we're trying, like, for example, we're raising money for a sewing center in India, in a place where they're all Muslim, and Christians cannot gather without being under a great deal of suspicion, and that means danger. You have a sewing center in a village. The women get together and literally sew, learn to sew or sew products, even to help with their livelihood. But they're actually going together to study the Bible and to worship. And when asked by the government what you're doing, we're sewing. When asked, and they are, but the truth is they're doing much more than sewing. They're also being the body of Christ in that village, and they have a platform to do that in a safe way. That can be done. That's done for $500. So the amount of money that we're talking about is not that much. So sometimes we have some buildings we have to put up, but we most of the time don't. We're not really about building buildings. We've only done that when the circumstances demanded it, like there wasn't another way to do it without doing that.
It seems that the money in the ministry multiplies on its own. So you pay that one class tuition fee, and one pastor goes back, and in this very example, one pastor goes back to the village and literally transforms that entire village. And I've seen the ripple effect. I've seen the ripple effect of somebody supporting enough to buy the soccer nets, and I've seen the kids come in, and the non-Christian kids come play with the Christian kids, and see somebody get saved through that experience. I think that's probably maybe the greatest feature of all of this is just the ripple effect and how it's really changing the region.
And it's true in this country, but like it also has a ripple effect in America as well, because the churches that we've started among the refugees, they appreciate the work that we're doing, even in the country they came from. And so those churches, they're refugee churches, but make no mistake, they're generous. They're obedient to God with their money. They tithe, and they're generous beyond that. And they give very generously to the projects that we're doing among people groups that are their own people back in their own country. And so they're big supporters of children's homes and things like that. So it's fun to see the work of God, how that you bear fruit in one place, that fruit then even bears fruit in other places as well.
So if people see, the videos, or they're watching this and they're interested, what's the best way to contribute to Ethne Network or Ethne Global Services?
Well, we're not real fancy. We do have a way to do it online, and some people do that and want to do that. Anybody that gives, no matter how they give, they'll get a notice about that from for their taxes and things. But as it's required by our nonprofit laws. A lot of people mail a check, like you do bill pay on your computer, and you do something on your computer, and it sends us a check. I don't know how that works, but I get checks in the mail that were generated by somebody's computer bill pay. So a lot of those come, and you can do Venmo now. Some people are giving by Venmo. So there's all kinds of new ways that people are doing it, but still there's the refugee people. They still operate in cash. A lot of times they just walk up and hand me their offering, and so and it's in cash. So we're diligent to record all of that and make sure it's done well. But so people have been generous. Both those agencies have websites, ethnechurch.net and ethneglobalservices.org.
Okay. And then the way I end all my interviews, how can people be praying for you and be praying for the work that you're doing?
Well, I still have a job that I do as a professor, and as you know, you're a student of mine in the classroom, and so I still have that job that I take seriously, and even count you being here as sort of fruit of that. And so you can pray that I'll continue to do a good job as a professor for Gateway Seminary and raise up Christian leaders through that, and help them to be discipled into and have a heart for the nations. We always ask and pray that God would raise up harvesters among the peoples that we're working with. For the harvest is plentiful, the labors are few. So we ask God, beg God prayerfully to send laborers to the harvest. You've seen a lot of those answered prayers since you've been here. Even this week, 4 young people have said they want to be church planters and be trained to do that. Not counting the ones that we had in our class that were trained, that are being trained already. We have a lot of people in different places that are dangerous. We have one pastor and his wife in Africa right now that are in circumstances that are life-threatening. So I'm asking that they can be prayed for to be delivered to a new country that would be safe for them and their family. I have churches that are in places where there's a lot of persecution.
Interview and for all the work that you're doing really around the globe. It's really encouraging for me to be doing some of this work with you and to just hear all the stories of all the work that I haven't seen firsthand.
Well, thank you for interviewing me, and it's nice to meet all the people that are watching this by video, and maybe we can meet each other face to face in the future. Thanks a lot.